During dinner with my fiance's parents, they said I could marry her only if I transferred my house and half my salary. She smiled and whispered, "I'm worth a lot." She found out the next day that what she signed wasn't what she thought, and now she works for me. That I've always been careful about money. Not obsessed, just practical. I bought my first house at 28, small but fully paid off, and I've spent years building a comfortable life. No loans, stable job in IT management, a few investments, nothing flashy. I've never been rich, but I've always been steady. When I met Lena, she was working in marketing, confident, funny, spontaneous. She had that energy that pulled people in. We clicked right away. She was more extroverted than me, but it worked. She made me social. I made her grounded. After 2 years, I proposed. She cried, said yes immediately, and started calling herself the future Mrs. Miller in every conversation. Everything felt fine until we started planning the wedding. I'd met her parents before, the kind of people who talk in money. Her father's a retired banker. Her mother owns a boutique that never seems to have customers but somehow stays open. They weren't cruel, but they had that patronizing tone with everyone, even their daughter. When we sat down for dinner to discuss wedding logistics, I had no idea what I was walking into. It started normal. Wine, polite conversation, stories about Lena as a kid. Then her father cleared his throat and said, "So, son, let's talk about how you'll support our daughter once she moves in with you." I said I already owned my home, that we'd live there after the wedding. That's when things shifted. Her mother smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and said, "Well, traditionally, a man shows his commitment with security. You understand that, right?" I nodded slowly, unsure where she was going. Her father leaned in. "We think it's only fair you transfer the house into joint ownership before the wedding. And, of course, share half your salary into a joint account once you're married. Our daughter deserves stability." I honestly thought he was joking. But then Lena looked at me, placed her hand over mine, and said softly, "They're right, babe. It's just the smart thing to do. I'm worth a lot, you know." And then she smiled. Not a nervous smile, a satisfied one. Like the deal was already done. I sat there, completely calm, even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. I asked, "So you're saying unless I transfer half my assets, there's no marriage?" Her father didn't blink. That's how responsible families protect their daughters. If you truly love her, you'll sign. If not, maybe this wedding isn't meant to happen. Lena squeezed my hand. "Don't make this a big thing, okay? It's just business." Business. That's when I knew exactly what I was dealing with. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "Of course. I'll have something drawn up tomorrow." They smiled. Lena even kissed my cheek, whispering, "See? I knew you'd understand." I finished my dinner quietly, listening to her mother talk about venue deposits and her father drone on about financial compatibility. But inside, I was already drafting a very different document. Because what I was going to sign the next day wasn't a transfer. It was a test. That night, after dinner at her parents' place, Lena was humming in the car, scrolling through wedding ideas on her phone. I watched her reflection in the window. The way she smiled like everything had fallen neatly into place. She had no idea she'd just shown me exactly who she was. When we got home, she kissed me goodnight and said, "Don't overthink it, babe. You'll feel better once it's signed. My parents just want to make sure I'm taken care of." I smiled, kissed her back, and said, "Of course. I'll talk to my lawyer tomorrow." She looked pleased, relieved, even. That was the first time I realized she didn't just expect me to comply. She believed she'd won. The next morning, I called Evan, an old friend who handled most of my legal work. I told him everything. The dinner, the conditions, the exact words her parents used. He went quiet for a few seconds and then said, "You're sure you want to go through with this wedding?" I said, "No, but I want them to think I am." Then I explained what I wanted to draft. A completely legitimate document that looked like what her parents requested, but with one crucial difference. The terms didn't transfer ownership of the house or salary. Instead, it was a conditional prenup, one that protected me completely. If Lena married me under false pretenses, manipulated financial assets, or acted in bad faith, she forfeited any claim to my property or finances. It also included a clause requiring full disclosure of all personal debts prior to marriage, something I knew she wouldn't notice or bother reading. Evan laughed when I finished explaining. "You're setting a trap with a lawyer's precision." I like it. That afternoon, I invited Lena and her parents to my lawyer's office. They arrived beaming, clearly thinking I'd folded under their pressure. Lena's mother even brought a bottle of champagne. When Evan handed them the document, Lena's father squinted at the title page and asked, "This says prenuptial agreement. Where's the transfer form?" Evan, playing along perfectly, said in his practiced tone, "The transfer is included under the marital property clause, sir. Everything will be filed automatically once signed." He wasn't lying. It would be filed automatically, but in my favor. They flipped through the pages quickly, clearly not reading a thing. Lena barely skimmed past the legal terms before saying, "Where do I sign?" I remember that exact moment. She looked at me, that same smug smile she'd worn at dinner, and said, "See? Easy. I told you this was just business." I signed. She signed. Her parents toasted to the future, and I just smiled, feeling a strange kind of peace settle in my chest. Over the next few weeks, everything looked normal. Wedding plans continued. Invitations went out. Lena started referring to our house and joking about renovations. But every time she mentioned money, my money, she did it with that same tone her parents used. Ownership, entitlement, expectation. Then one evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach turn. Ryan Speech Balloon, event coordinator. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Something about that emoji said everything. Later, when she came out, towel wrapped around her hair, I asked casually, "Hey, who's Ryan?" She froze for a second, then smiled. "Oh, just this guy from the wedding venue. Don't worry about it." That night, while she slept, I looked through our shared tablet and found messages, not explicit, but close. Flirty. Familiar. She'd told him she was so ready to start a new chapter and tired of dealing with a man who doesn't take risks. I didn't get angry. I didn't confront her. I simply sent a message to Evan the next morning. Activate the clause. Update 1. By the time the rehearsal dinner came around, everything was perfectly in place. The venue, the catering, the guests, all arranged by Lena and her parents, down to the last detail. They'd insisted on covering most of it to show family unity. But of course, all the contracts were in my name. My lawyer made sure of that, quietly, weeks ago. Lena was glowing that evening, radiant, confident, absolutely certain that her future was carved in gold. Her mother kept bragging to guests about how her daughter was marrying into stability, and her father clinked glasses with me like we were business partners. If only they knew what the next 24 hours would bring. Halfway through dinner, Lena raised a toast. "To my future husband," she said, grinning across the table, "who's finally learned that sometimes trusting me is the best investment of all." Everyone laughed politely. I did too. I even raised my glass. Then my phone buzzed, right on cue. A text from Evan. Clause processed. Property reconfirmed. Prenup filed. It was done. That prenup, the one Lena and her parents had pushed me to sign, was now officially active. It secured my house, my income, my assets, everything. And it left her legally entitled to nothing. The next morning, I woke up early, got dressed, and drove to the venue. I told her I'd be there ahead of time to finalize details. She didn't question it. She was busy posting a countdown to forever selfie with the caption, "Can't believe it's finally happening, Blackheart." When I arrived, Ryan was already there. Yes, that Ryan. He wasn't hard to spot. Handsome, overconfident, the kind of guy who probably thought every woman found him charming. He was helping the staff arrange tables, trying too hard to seem important. When he noticed me, his smile faltered slightly. I walked straight up to him, shook his hand, and said, "Thanks for taking such good care of my fiancée's event. You've been very involved, I hear." He looked uneasy. "Oh yeah? Just doing my job." I smiled. "Good. Because this is your last day doing it." I handed him an envelope, a formal letter from the venue's management. Evan had contacted them the day before. Ryan was being dismissed for misconduct after multiple complaints of inappropriate relationships with clients. His face drained of color. "Wait, what?" I leaned in slightly. "You should probably check your messages before you show up here again." And then I walked away. By noon, guests were arriving. Lena came in radiant white, her hair styled perfectly, her eyes sparkling, until she saw the look on my face. Something in her expression shifted. "What's wrong?" she whispered. I just said, "Let's have a word before we start." We stepped aside, into a small lounge near the entrance. I pulled out the prenup, the one she'd proudly signed. Do you remember this? She rolled her eyes. Obviously. What? I placed it on the table and tapped the signature page. You might want to read what you actually agreed to. She frowned, skimmed the text, then slowed down. Her expression went from annoyance to confusion to dawning horror. What is this? She whispered. This isn't what. It's exactly what you signed, I said calmly. You asked me to trust you, remember? So I did. And I made sure my lawyer trusted me. Her face went pale. You tricked me. No, I interrupted. You tested me. I just passed in a way you didn't expect. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. I knew what it was, a message from the venue manager. Ryan's termination notice. She stared at it, lips trembling, eyes darting between me and her screen. You planned this. You planned to own half my life? I said quietly. I just made sure I still owned it. I walked out, leaving her in the lounge. Guests were waiting, music was playing, but there would be no wedding that day. Later that evening, I got a call from her father. His voice was cold. You embarrassed our family. No, I replied. Your daughter did that all by herself. He hung up without another word. The final update. It's been exactly 2 years since that almost wedding day. The day Lena walked down the aisle toward a future she thought she controlled, and I walked out of it with my dignity, my house, and my peace intact. I didn't post an update before because, honestly, I didn't know how to put into words what followed. It wasn't just the fallout. It was the strange quiet afterward, like when a storm passes and you're not sure whether to feel relief or grief. But enough time has passed. And for anyone who's ever been told you're paranoid, insecure, or overreacting, while your gut screams the opposite, this is for you. After I left the venue that day, I turned off my phone and drove out to my family's cabin. I sat by the lake until sunrise. No calls, no news, no messages. Just silence. By the time I came back into cell range, I had 52 missed calls, dozens of texts, and a voicemail from her mother that started with, "How dare you?" and ended in tears. Lena tried to sue me. She claimed I deceived her into signing a fraudulent prenup, but since she'd had the document for 2 weeks before signing and chose not to have a lawyer review it, despite my repeated offers, the case didn't even make it to court. My lawyer, Evan, shut it down in a single letter. Then, as if to twist the knife, her new love, Ryan, gave a statement to the venue's HR investigation that she had manipulated him emotionally and that he regretted getting involved. He kept his record clean. She didn't. Within months, she'd lost her job at the real estate firm where she'd been interning. Turns out HR doesn't appreciate leaked screenshots of an affair with a contractor. I heard from mutual friends that she moved back in with her parents for a while. Her father apparently stopped speaking to her for months after the incident, not because of the cheating, but because of the humiliation it brought to his name. A year later, I learned she'd been working in customer service at a leasing agency, one of the smaller companies my firm had quietly acquired. I didn't plan it that way. Life just has a sense of humor sometimes. When I walked into their office for an unannounced site inspection, I recognized her instantly. The same sharp cheekbones, the same cold confidence, now dulled by exhaustion. She froze when she saw me. "Hi, Lena," I said quietly. "Mr. Hale," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know your company. Acquired this branch?" "Yeah, we closed the deal last quarter." She nodded, eyes flickering everywhere but my face. I didn't. I didn't expect to see you again. Neither did I." There was a long silence. Then, for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "I never meant for things to go like that," she said softly. "I just wanted a life that felt stable." "You wanted control," I corrected gently. "You thought money could give you that. But stability isn't built from leverage. It's built from trust." She didn't answer, just nodded, as if she finally understood, maybe a year too late. That night, I went home, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on my porch. It was quiet, the air cold but peaceful. People always expect stories like this to end with revenge or regret, but mine ended with perspective. I don't hate Lena. I don't even wish her harm. I just don't wish her anything anymore. The silence she left behind became the space where I rebuilt myself, one decision, one boundary, one honest connection at a time. And when I eventually met someone new, a woman named Grace, who didn't care about my house, my title, or my account balance, I realized something simple. Lena was never testing my commitment. She was testing my self-respect. And for once, I passed a test that actually mattered.